Welcome, everyone. We are here for the dramatic read of the deposition of the state's expert, Tanya Werner, Dr. Tanya Werner, uh, because we are going to see for our own little selves whether this, expert used her feminine mind powers on Owens to confabulate and discombobulate him to the point that he needs a new trial. Sarah needs a new trial. And we're here to see if we read this deposition and see maybe where she did. She just pulled out her mental, feminineness and she was like, ta ha ha. So this is the deposition. It is a video conference. Dr. Tanya Werner was the psychiatrist with a medical background. So she was not only a doctor, but also a psychiatrist who did, look at all of the information of the case, talked to Sarah, and basically said, yeah, no, she doesn't qualify for battered spouse. Not this case, not this time. While she may have battered spouse, it really isn't applicable to this case. So we're going to see if, like Owen said, welcome Annette and welcome everyone. She was bamboozling him and, trying to hoodwink him. So let's get into this because it is 87 pages. It is pretty big font though, so we should be able to get through it. The video conference deposition of Dr. Tanya Werner, MD, was taken on behalf of the defendant on Friday, October 4th, 2024, beginning at 1:04 p.m., and hosted by the Office of Marge Radar, Court Reporter Incorporated, all the places basically in the court. So the reporter, we are swearing in the witness based on Supreme Court Administrative Order number AOSC 20-23. Witness is sworn, whereupon Tanya Werner, having been first duly sworn by the reporter, testifies as follows. So this is the direct examination. This is going to be by Mr. J. So the state's attorney, the one who brought the Force and Darth Vader into the rebuttal, which is awesome. As a nerd, I appreciate that he didn't go Disney Star Wars. So we stuck with the OG original trilogy. Mr. Owens, Dr. Werner? Yes, sir. Yes, this is James Owens again. As you know, I represent Sarah. Oh, this is Owens. So the I'm confused. I would blame it on the fact that I found my youngest, most feral using my toothbrush, yes, my personal toothbrush, to brush the head of our cats to make them reminded of their mother this morning. So this is Mr. Owens examining her first. So, Mr. Owens, Dr. Werner? Yes, sir. Yes, this is James Owens again. As you know, I represent Sarah Boone. Yes, sir. Would you please state your full name and spell your last? My name is Tanya, Tonia, and Werner, Werner. And can you give me your address? I'm not going to read that out. And what is the name of the facility where you work? Meridian Behavioral Behavior Healthcare. Are you a partner there or do you own the business? No, it's a nonprofit. I work for them. What do you mean by nonprofit? It's a not-for-profit? Okay, so you don't get paid a salary by them? No, I do. It's a non-profit organization. Like the Salvation Army is non-profit. It is a non-profit organization, a community mental health care center. Okay, how long have you worked for them? Almost 10 years, since 2015. All right, and what did you do before that? I was on the University of Florida on faculty as an associate professor and vice chairman of the Department of Psychiatry and the director of the Forensic Institute at the University of Florida. How long were you there? From 1998 to 2015 when I retired. And prior to that, thank you so much for the shizzy raid. Yeah, how does he not know what a nonprofit is? He's like, so you don't get paid, do you? No, not for profit means not paying its employees. That's not what that means. Oh, dear Lord. We're already starting out strong. She's using her ability and command of the English language to hurt this man. Let's see. And prior to that, I was in psychiatric training. And where was that? I did my residency at Connecticut Valley Hospital in Middletown, Connecticut, under the auspices of Yale University. I did 4 years of training there. Then I came to the University of Florida and did a 1-year fellowship in forensic psychiatry. I'm board certified in general and forensic psychiatry. And what did you do prior to the residency? I attended medical school. And where did you go for medical school? American University of the Caribbean. American University of the Caribbean? Of the Caribbean, correct. And where is that? At the time I was there, it was in Plainview, Texas. I believe it's now on St. Martin, but it had been hit by a hurricane and they had to relocate to the mainland of the United States at the time I attended. Why did you choose that school? And welcome, Welsh Lady Reads. I had not finished my undergraduate degree and they accepted me. I got waitlisted at the University of South Florida and they accepted me at the American University of the Caribbean, and they were in Texas, so I was just anxious to go and I went. And prior to that, during my first semester of medical school, I completed my bachelor's degree. Where did you complete your bachelor's? So I got my bachelor's degree it's from the University of South Florida, but I took a couple of courses to complete it through the Wayland Baptist University, which is where the medical school was being housed at the time on the mainland. So you were able to complete your bachelor's there in Texas and stay on the campus for... Whereupon there was a Zoom technicality, after which the following transpired. Whereupon the previous question was read back by the reporter, after which the following transpired. By Mr. Owens. Dr. Werner. I didn't live on campus. I had housing. I had a house I rented off campus, but our courses, we used their facility. We leased, I guess. The school leased part of their facility to the university, or of the university. Who is we in this situation? What do you mean, who is we? You just said we leased. The school? No. Then I changed it to the school because I had nothing to do with it, so I assumed the school leased part of the facility of Baptist University where we were housed. Okay, so you got accepted, you finished off your undergrad, you got accepted, the campus the school was right there, so you just started your postgraduate. Correct. I did my first 2 years, in the classroom, learning there in Texas, and then I went to Connecticut and did all of my clinicals in Connecticut. Okay, now, as it relates to Sarah Boone, my client, obviously we understand you evaluated her. Was it yesterday or the day before? Day before yesterday, correct. Okay, and that was at the Orange County Jail? Yes. And that was with the 2 prosecutors and myself? That's correct. How long was that evaluation? It was approximately 2 hours and 20 minutes. And did you do any testing? I did a mental status examination. What is that medical status examination called? It's called a mental status examination. That's it? That's it. That's what it's called. And what else did you do besides that test? Interviewed her. Is it customary in the field? Yes. And now, how long have you been on this case? Oh, I'm not sure when they first contacted me, in all honesty. Well, the event occurred in February of 2020. Do you know if you were contacted during the year of 2020? No, sir, I was not. I was contacted this calendar year. So you haven't been involved in this case at all until 2024? That's correct. I seem to remember that they had retained an expert, a potential rebuttal expert prior to me coming in. I came on the case in late August of 2024. I seem to recall that they already had a rebuttal witness. So you were not involved in any way prior to me coming in August of 2024? Oh, I'm not sure. I said this calendar year, which is 2024. So I very well may have been on board before you came in. Yeah. Do you have any notes that would reflect, do you have the notes that would reflect in your file about when you came on? It would probably be on my calendar somewhere where I first had the phone conference with them or in an email. I'll have to look for it. Can you check? Can you check that and either get back to me or the prosecutor about when you were first on the case? Yeah. All right. And what all did you do to get up to speed on the case to be able to evaluate and then diagnose and render opinions? So I reviewed some documents that were referred to me and I evaluated her in the jail. All right. How many documents were you asked to review? I was provided with the Orange County Sheriff's Office investigative report. How many pages was that? There are several different printouts. It's 150 pages. Okay. No, I take that back. 50. I have 58 of that. Okay. I have a transcript of the taped interview of Sarah Boone. Is that transcript of the 2-hour coerced interrogation? I'm adding words, y'all. In the Orange County jail. I don't know if it was an interrogation or not. The title of the document is Transcript of Taped Interview of Sarah Boone. It's from February 24th of 2024. How many pages was that? Again, there are several different printouts, and the last page I have is 177. Okay, what other documents did you review? I have another transcript of a taped interview of Sarah Boone. This one I have dated as February 25th, and that one is 394 pages. But it may be a continuation of the other ones because it's not dated at the top. I handwrote on that, so I don't know. Let me see at the back if I got it from the back of it, where the date or where I got the date from. No, it's not dated on the back either. So I'm not sure where I got that date from. It may be miswritten. It may also be part of the February 24th one. Okay, go ahead. Then I have the medical records from Aspire Health, and I have, hold on just a minute. The medical records. Number 4 document was the medical records from Aspire Health. Who was treated in those records? Sarah Boone. And do they have the dates of treatment? October 25th, 2018, and the last one is, or the first one is January 23rd, 2018. Okay, I believe that was number 4, the medical records. What's next? I have the medical records from Cox Health. Spell Cox. Ciox. So this is Advent Health, it looks like. And who was the patient? Sarah Boone. What are the dates there? January 13th, 2022 was the first one, and let me make sure. January 23rd, 2018 was the last date it appears. Here's another one because they're not in order, I guess. July 2009. I mean, I don't have the dates written down, so I'm flipping through it. Was that for some kind of psychological? That was an emergency room. I've lost that page already. Some of them are psychiatric and some of them are not. July 2009 was an emergency room visit, and she started on clindamycin, an antibiotic, so I doubt it was psychiatric. She had the clap, allegedly in Minecraft. I'm making this up in my own head. But she had the clap. I'm going with the clap. Okay, anything else about those records? No. All right, what else did you review? Then there were two printed out sections of, it looks like text messages and location pings off a cell phone, I assume. They're not labeled, it's just there is two of them. And what are the dates beginning and ending of both of them? One starts on December 25th, 2019 and goes through February 24th, 2020. And are those text messages from Sarah Boone's phone? You know what? The numbers aren't labeled, so I assumed from reading the text messages, but it's not labeled that way. Can you tell when Sarah is texting and when someone else is responding back? Well, why, yes, I just look at the quantitude, if you ask me. But that's not what she really answered. Well, it says what number is coming from, so it shows like if it's going from that phone or to the phone. Yes, there is a way to tell that, but I can't tell who's texting. Were you able to tell when Sarah was texting? Well, when the message was from her phone, I assumed to be her phone. Yeah. Yeah. You considered that in your evaluation? No, you asked me what I reviewed. I'm telling you what I reviewed. Okay, you didn't consider those texts in your messages in your evaluation? I'm aware of them, but they're not necessarily overly relevant. Okay, so the first set was from December 25th of 2019 to February 24th of 2020. Correct. And the second set of text, February 15th, 2018 through December 23rd, 2019. And did you consider those text messages in your evaluation? I mean, I read through them, so I'm aware of what's in there. I'm aware that they, had relationship issues and that she was, taking pictures and they were fighting over text. And, I'm aware of relationship issues going back and forth via regarding the text. And was there anything from those text messages that stuck out to you and caused you to pause and feel like they made some impact on your evaluation? No, as I said, it made me aware that they had a volatile relationship. I mean, in some of them, there are capital letters coming from her cursing at him, calling him an idiot, an effing idiot for overdrafting. And, there are some referencing DV and, injuries. I mean, there are different text messages in there that demonstrated they had a violent relationship, a volatile relationship. Would you consider that in your evaluation? Of course. Okay, anything that sticks out to you other than what you've indicated? No. All right then. What else did you review? That's it. Okay, so I've got number one, I've got investigative report. You said was 58 pages. Number two, I've got a transcript that was of Sarah Boone, an interview with Sarah Boone that was 177 pages. Number three, I've got a transcript that was an interview of Sarah Boone, my client, that was 394 pages. Then number four, I've got the medical records from Aspire Health. The patient was Sarah Boone, and the dates were from January to October of 2018. Number five, I've got medical records where Sarah Boone was patient at Cox Health or Advent Health. And it looks like those records were potentially July 2009 all the way to January 13th, 2024. And then number six, I got a printout of text messages, two sets. One from October of 2019 to February 2020, which you believe you can interpret that the messages came from Sarah Boone. And then a second set from, no, that's misstating what I said. Tell me what, then tell me what you mean then. I said that I can tell which messages came from the phone that is attributed to Sarah Boone. I did not say I knew they came from Sarah. Do you have any reason to believe they didn't come from Sarah? The ones that you attributed to her phone? Sir, those text messages were awful. Maybe you should try to say the one-armed man did it. But, you do you, boo. You make sure she knows that those messages are from Sarah Boone, especially the one that's like, stay Hispanic. I would have said, no, I don't know. Maybe someone else got her phone. But he's like, those were 100%. Sir, do you have a point? I have no idea who typed them in. How would I know? Okay, but there's nothing. There is nothing to indicate that they wouldn't have come from Sarah if they were from Sarah's phone, correct? I would assume so, but I'm not stating that I know they came from Sarah. I understand. Okay? But you've been advised that that number was Sarah Boone's phone number? Nobody told me that. I assumed from when I received the records in reviewing them that that was her phone number. Okay. That this is Sarah Boone's number. Okay, then it looks like there was a second set of printout of text messages from February 15th of 2018 to December 23rd of 2019, and that appeared to be text messages relating to Sarah Boone's cell phone as well. Correct. Same number. And from that last, number 6, the printout of text messages, you determined what you determined was that they were having relationship issues or a volatile relationship. They were fighting. There were pictures that would indicate it was a volatile relationship. Yes, they were descriptions of things. Anything else you can glean from these messages of those two sets of text messages about Sarah Boone, or no? Okay, anything else you've reviewed? No, sir. Have you reviewed any videotapes? No, because I would look at a video file now, you giant boomer. I would have said, no, my Betamax was busy. No, I have not. Have you reviewed any of the audio tapes? I have not. Have you reviewed the autopsy report? I've not. Okay. It may have been in the investigative. Hang on, because it may have been with the investigative report. I know I've at least seen a description of it at some point, so described in the incident report. No, I don't see it in there, so I know that it was probably described in here, and when they went back to talk to her on the second day, because I know they talked to her about it. Okay, did you receive any medical records from George Torres? No, I did not. Explain to me exactly what your title is. I'm the chief medical officer. And what does that mean? It means I'm in charge of all the medical staff. Is your job basically administrative duties? Are you like the secretary of the medical office? That's a portion of it, but that's probably the smallest portion of my job. What other parts of your job besides the small portion? What are the other parts of your job besides the small portion for administration? Yes, so I work 7 days a week on Crisis Stabilization Unit in Lake City, Florida. I run that unit, and we have approximately 30 patients in there. What I see that I see during the week on weekends and holidays are those. Go ahead. Are those patients that have to come in over the weekend that are in some form of crisis? Well, I think that would have been evident considering she works at a crisis stabilization unit, and she does work on the weekends. Nope, send them to Aldi's, make them stalkers. What are these dumb questions? They come in and out. Yes, sir. Okay, is there a limited amount of time that they can stay at the facility in Lake City? There's no specific limited amount of time. We are a short-term treatment facility. We are a Baker Act receiving facility, so a majority of our patients are on Baker Act Our average length of stay is typically 3 to 5 days. We do have some outliers that do stay much longer than that if we're holding them specifically to transfer to another facility, such as one of the state hospitals. They will end up staying longer than that, but our typical patients will only stay, I would say 3 to 5 days, maybe a week, long enough. Would it be fair to say that probably 95% of patients at that facility just stay short term? It's actually 60 to 65%. Okay, and would you treat them by talking to them and medication? Correct. We have therapists, we have recreational therapy, we have physiotherapy, no, psychotherapy, sorry. I'm thinking of my own self with physiotherapy, which, I mean, to be fair, I'm for sure with my accents and all the characters I have in my head, psychotherapy might be warranted at some point too. We have medication management with them. We do family therapy, so we try to address all of their issues. Okay, so how much of your workload would you say is attributed to Lake City Crisis Stabilization Facility? Well, Monday through Friday, I'm there 50% of my time. So every morning, and then I'm there on the weekend in the mornings too. So more than 50% of my time is related to that. All right. What is the other? What is the other time? My forensic work. Now, what do you mean by forensic work? So, forensic psychiatry is an area of psychiatry where psychiatry intersects with the law. So, anytime there's a legal case that has some sort of psychiatric question, whether it be in the civil arena or the criminal arena, I love that she's having to explain this to him like a jury. What is DNA? Well, it's the building blocks that tell us, or it's the map that tells the building blocks how to put us together. Are you a psychiatrist? Yes, sir. Okay, now I know we've got a couple experts on our side. Dr. Julia Harper. Do you know her? I do not. Do you know what her title is? I believe she's a psychologist, isn't she? I think a forensic psychologist. And do you know the other expert we've got is Dr. Michael Brandon? Do you know him? I do not. Okay, do you know what his title is? I do not. I think he is a forensic psychologist as well. Okay. Do you explain to me what the difference is between your position as a forensic psychiatrist and their position as a forensic psychologist? So I'm an MD and they're not. What are they? They can be Phys DS. They can be Phys DS, but they're not MDs. They didn't go to medical school. So psychologists typically do therapy, but they can't prescribe medication or understand medical issues, so to speak. Yeah. But they typically do testing, psychological testing, and therapy. Is there a big difference in the roles, the two separate roles, psychiatrist and psychologist? In their roles for what? Treatment? In the forensic field. Well, sure, we're both asked to do evaluations. They do testing, psychological testing, when it's indicated, which is not always indicated. If there's a cognitive issue going on, they can do that, or personality issues. They can come into play with regards to psychological testing that can be helpful. Where we have a better understanding of medications and any medical aspects of the individual. Okay. And then you said that you do administrative roles, and then you said you did 50% or more of your work at the Lake City, Florida Crisis Stability Center. And then you said you do forensic work as a forensic psychologist or psychiatrist. What is the percentage of your work that is forensic psychiatrist? I have no idea. It's probably 45%. And that would involve, go ahead, 45% of your work is forensic psychiatry, Probably 50-50. It just depends on the week, honesty. In all honesty, because if I have a trial going on or a lot of depositions or, traveling to Orlando to see someone, then, I shift things around and more time may be dedicated this week to forensic work as opposed to, I may have somebody cover a patient for one day. So I'll do less clinical work this week. It just depends on week to week. So, as a forensic psychiatrist doing this forensic work, it's mostly relating to competency to proceed. I do a lot of competency to proceed, yes. I also do a lot of guardian evaluations. Those are probably the majority of the work that I do, in all honesty. Now, guardianship evaluations. I assume that's where family have filed some petition with the court that one of their family members just doesn't have the ability to care for themselves or manage their affairs for themselves, and they're asking the court to make a determination and appoint one of the family members to oversee. Yes, typically it's the family that files, or more recently, it's been facilities. So I think there have been some kind of change in their ability to get reimbursed from different payer sources unless they seek guardianship of individuals. So if there are individuals in their facilities that don't have families, the facility will file to have guardianship and to have a guardian appointed. So if they're in like a nursing home or somewhere like that. Correct. Yes. Okay. And literally over the last 2 years, the majority of evaluations have been coming from facilities and it's been a higher number. So I think something has changed with regards to their payer sources, honestly. So what percentage would you say of your forensic psychiatry work is related to either the guardianship or competency proceedings? Oh, I don't know. I don't keep track of it in that way, in all honesty. Well, take your best guess. Probably half of my forensic work is made up by those two. All right, and what's the other half? I do sanity at the time of the crime. I do competency to be executed, evaluations. I'm appointed by the governor to do those. I also do personal injury cases. I do medical malpractice. I did a lot of the tobacco cases against Big Tobacco, so just any number, anything in the... Okay, have you ever testified in court? Numerous times, yes. How many times would you say you've testified? 100, if not over 1,000, numerous, lots. In criminal cases? Criminal and civil, yes. What percentage of times you've testified were in a criminal case? In court, I'm not sure. In all honesty, I have no idea. Would it be less than 20? No, it's... Give us a... I'd be guessing. I'm guessing. Okay. I'm completely guessing it would probably be 60%. Okay. And is that mainly in competency to proceed type cases? Mainly because those are so common, although I have to say that they did not used to be the most common in the most common evaluation I do, but they're not typically the most common evaluations that would have testimony. Because in the past, they would get 3 evaluations and not have testimony. But here, more recently, they've only been doing 2 evaluations and having testimony. Okay. So a lot of the times you wouldn't testify, you would just submit a report. Correct. And that would be sufficient. It would be accepted by both parties, your opinion. You, a woman? Yes. Okay. And then you said you've done some work outside of the criminal arena. You said it's about 50% of the work you do. Of the civil work, again, I'm guessing, so I don't remember what percentage I assigned to that because I'm just guessing. Okay, in the criminal cases, do you testify primarily for the state? I'm called by both sides. All right. How many times have you been called by the defense as a witness in a trial? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I've been doing this for 20-something years. I have absolutely no idea. You don't keep records of that? No, sir. Are you asked about that from time to time by the lawyers you've work about by lawyers about work you've done? Yeah. Okay, in criminal cases, what are the opinions you are asked to render? I think we just went through that. Competency to proceed, sanity at the time of the crime. Okay, and you think the percentage that you testify for the state is about 50-50 with the time you spent testifying for the defense? It's probably more weighted toward the state. The times, it depends on your question. So the times I've been hired, it's probably more weighted towards the state. The times that I've testified, I actually have no idea because again, a lot of times I don't testify. Okay. And then you said you testified as an expert. Have you testified, I assume as an expert, those hundreds of times, almost 1,000 times as an expert? Yes, I also testify every week in as a treating physician through our Baker Act court. Okay, well, I'm referring to right now, to criminal trials, which there is a jury that has been impaneled. Sure. And what would you qualify as an expert to testify about? I've been qualified to testify with regards to psychiatric issues, anything under the umbrella of forensic psychiatry. So any type of psychiatric issue that they're having questions about, competency questions, diagnoses. Well, I know usually in a criminal case it would involve competency or either insanity. Correct. Are there any other ways that you would be allowed to testify in a criminal case other than for competency or insanity? I've done mitigation and aggravating factors. Are you talking about sentencing? Correct. In criminal. Okay, and so you would testify. What would be aggravating factors in terms of forensic psychology? I wouldn't know. You would have to ask a forensic psychologist. I'm sorry. I apologize. Forensic psychologist, psychiatrist. What would you do for your particular, whatever it is you call it? That would be aggravating. It could be anything. It could be anything. So you would have to give me an example. You would have your statutory aggravating factors and you have, non-statutory aggravating factors. So would it be some kind of diagnosis that you would give? No. I can comment on their upbringing, their educational background, any of those issues or factors. Uh, you're never called to testify as diagnosing somebody with some type of personality trait? Yes, I can be. As an aggravator or mitigator? Yes, that can also be an aggravator or mitigator, sure. Okay, as it relates to that, diagnosed with some type of personality, how often are you asked to do that? Every case, as even a competency case asks for a diagnosis. Okay, and what are generally the diagnoses in these types of cases? There are no general diagnoses. Each individual is different. I don't go in with any kind of notion that there is a general diagnosis. Each individual is different. Can you give me one diagnosis that you would render in a criminal case? Schizophrenia, alcohol abuse or use. There is no diagnosis of alcohol abuse anymore. We don't use that. It's alcohol use disorder is the official diagnosis. Okay, so schizophrenia or alcohol use disorder. Any other type of diagnoses? There are thousands of them. Anything from the DSM-5 TR is fair game. Any diagnoses. I understand, but there would seem to be some kind of common diagnosis that you would have in the criminal realm that you would come up with before a jury. Antisocial personality disorder, but each individual is different. So some of them have those and some of them don't have those. Are you allowed to render those types of opinions before a jury? Yes. Okay, so I've got schizophrenia, alcohol use disorder, antisocial personality disorder, anything else that is common, fairly common diagnosis on your part as in a criminal case. You just asked me, are there any diagnoses? I'm not telling you those are common ones on my part. Each individual is different. So I approach them and I evaluate them and diagnose them based on what presentation they have. Okay. Anything else you want to say about your testimony that you feel makes you an expert in the field about which you are going to render opinions? No, I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have. Have you ever testified in a battered spouse syndrome situation? Yes, I have. How many times? I think I testified recently to the fact that it was between 5 and 10 times. But after I testified to that, in thinking about it, it actually involved a lot of cases where it actually isn't the kind of main focus of the case. So I think the number is higher than that. All right, but you believe a fair estimate would be between 5 and 10 times? No. I just said I believe it's more than that. Okay, but you've testified that someone suffers as, a battered spouse. Suffers or didn't under that syndrome. Correct. So if it's not 5 to 10, what would the number be? I'm not sure. Again, I didn't keep track of that over however long I've done that. But a lot of, intimate violent cases involved. Would you say under 20? I'm not sure. Well, ma'am, you've got to give me some type of number. I'm not sure. Would you say under 50? Yes, probably under 50. Okay, so you think you've testified about battered spouse syndrome in 50 cases before a jury? I didn't say before a jury. It may have been a bench trial. I said that it might have been a deposition, but I believe I have testified with regards to that, yes. Okay, in front of a jury, how many times have you testified as an expert about battered spouse syndrome? I have no idea. Would it be less than 10? I have absolutely no idea. I'd be guessing. I mean, I'm just guessing at these numbers, so I have no idea. Well, how long have you been rendering opinions that people suffer from battered spouse syndrome? Since my training. Excuse me? Since my training in 1998. We were trained on it. All right, all right. So what training have you received regarding battered spouse syndrome? So we received training on it during our psychiatric residency, and then I'm very active in the Florida Psychiatric Society, and I actually presented numerous times on domestic violence at their meeting. All right, tell me about the training at the psychiatric residency. What was that training regarding battered spouse? Just generalized training, just like you learn about antidepressants, we learn about generalized anxiety disorder. So we have training was there like a class on that or just like some seminars? Yes, we would have had seminars. We had lectures during the week as residents. Okay, all right. We'd go to lecture series, and we would be lectured on that, correct? So during the psychiatric residency, how much time did you spend on lectures on battered spouse syndrome? Objection, Your Honor. The defense is annoying the witness. Oh, I have no idea. That was 20 something years ago. I have no idea. Would you say less than 10 hours? I have no idea. Okay, is it possible it was less than 10 hours? No, not over a 4-year period of time. No. Okay, so you didn't take any classes on battered spouse syndrome, did you? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Did you take a course during your psychological residency that was on battered spouse syndrome? I didn't do a psychological residency. I did a psychiatric residency. And yes, we had, that's what I'm telling you. It was part of our lecture series. So yes. Okay, okay. Then you mentioned the Florida Psychiatric Society. Welcome, welcome. That's correct. And what training did you receive in regards to that? I didn't. I gave the training. On domestic violence that was included in the training? Or on battered spouse syndrome? On DV, and that was included in the training. Correct. All right, all right. And where did you learn about battered spouse syndrome? I think we just talked about it. I also did research online with my presentation partner, so we would update our slides because we did the presentation. So as part of your licensing for the state of Florida to maintain your medical license, you have mandatory continued medical education courses that you have to take. And one of them is a 2-hour DV course that you have to complete every 2 years when you renew your license. And so we would present it every 2 years at the Florida Psychiatric Society meetings to provide that for our members, that education, so that they would have it for their relicensing. And we did that for probably 4 or 5 years before we handed it off to someone else to do the presentation. So you would actually be presenting to other medical professionals for their CMEs, for their credits on domestic violence? That's correct. Okay, and do you have the slides for those PowerPoints? I do not. Dr. Gingori may still have them because we stopped doing it about 4 years ago, I believe. We handed it off. I can see if Dr. Ginori still has them. Is he in your office? She. No, she is a psychiatrist at North Florida Regional Medical Center. Is that in Jacksonville? They let a woman run something? No, sir, it's here in Gainesville. Okay, can you spell her last name? G, do you have your crown ready? Okay, Ginory. Okay, all right. As it relates to Sarah Boone, do you have any diagnosis as it relates to her? No, she told me she was previously diagnosed with general anxiety disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, so that would be in there. She's been prescribed an antalazid. She's been described basically something to help her with her anxiety. Whether it is general anxiety disorder versus an adjustment disorder to her being in the facility is questionable for me, in all honesty. I haven't had time to go through everything thoroughly since I just saw her 2 days ago and process everything in all honesty. I think that she also has narcissistic personality traits, were evident in the evaluation. So those would be my 2 major diagnoses. So from my understandings, I need a little page flipper where I'm just. So from my understanding, what you just said was, yeah, I agree with the generalized anxiety disorder that she has been diagnosed with. No, I said it would be generalized anxiety disorder versus an adjustment disorder, and that I hadn't had time to fully formulate my opinion out. What do you need? I need time to go through my notes and think about it and process it. But I had other depositions, as you are aware, yesterday, so I had to prepare for those to go through that. So I have not had time to process through all of my notes prior to this deposition today. Well, doctor, I'm not trying to inconvenience you. You know the judge set for October 7th for jury selection. Okay. But I don't anticipate your testimony would be until later. Maybe we could discontinue your deposition and reset it when you've got time to review, because obviously I'm not going to want to take your deposition and then you have other opinions that were not going to be covered. Mr. J, what is your opinion? Or what is your position? Mr. J, conducting discovery after jury trial starts is completely unacceptable to me. So that's my position. If she needs to issue a supplemental report, or if there becomes a need for a second deposition, we can address that. But it would be my position that we need to get this done because the state doesn't have any appellate rights once the jury is sworn and jeopardy attaches. Well, obviously you understand my position. I'd like to finish the deposition today as well, but if she is holding out that she may have other opinions or other diagnosis, as she has more time to think, review the paperwork, then obviously that creates an issue. The witnesses. But if that happens, I can bring that forward. Then you can add your deposition to that point if my opinion changes, and after having reviewed further. Mr. J, I think we need to plow ahead. This is our time with her. The court reporter is prepared to give us a transcript by the end of the weekend. If something needs to be amended, she can A, issue a report, then B, if you need to take a deposition, an abbreviated deposition on the limited subject matter she is not prepared to testify about on today, then we can do that. But the notion of halting a deposition today that is set for 3 hours and then doing a 3-hour deposition during trial, especially after jeopardy is attached, is not what the state would do. I'm not suggesting that, Mr. J. I am suggesting what you just said at the beginning. Let's just finish, but if she has some supplement, then I would want to take a brief second deposition as it relates to any new diagnoses or opinions. Mr. J. Okay. What I am understanding her to say right now is that there has been a previous diagnosis of an adjustment disorder in some of the records, and she needs to review her records to see if she thinks that's the best diagnosis that she would give, as opposed to generalized anxiety disorder. Am I misstating that, Dr. Werner? Actually, you flipped them. Okay. So she's saying that she has generalized anxiety disorder, and I'm saying I want to review it more to see if I think that it's more of an adjustment disorder to being in a correctional setting right now and the stressors that she's under right now, as opposed to generalized anxiety disorder. Mr. J. Okay, so on this topic, if something new comes up, we can address it. But if you have other topics to depose her on, then I would suggest we go on. I agree. And Dr. Werner, just let the state attorney know. I know that we're on short time. If you do your review notes over the weekend or whatnot and formulate any other opinions, just let the state's attorney know and we'll address it. Absolutely. Okay, so my understanding is you believe that she does not suffer from either generalized anxiety disorder, which is consistent with what she's already been diagnosed with, or an adjustment to the jail time as some kind of anxiety disorder. Correct. Okay, and then you base that on your interview with her plus the test that you gave her? My interview and her description of her of her presentation and what's going on with her and how she's felt since being in the correctional setting. Yes. Okay, and that test you gave was the only test you gave to her. Correct. I did a mental status examination. Okay, and so you said she believed she suffered from one of those, and that's your diagnosis. And then you mentioned narcissism and that she meets some of the traits in narcissism. Narcissistic personality disorder traits, correct. Okay. Tell me what the criteria she exhibits that tends to meet her as a narcissist. See all of her actions from birth. Just her presentation, the way she describes some of her milestones in her life, in herself, in her actions, was an overly kind of self-grandiose manner, so to speak. Like when I asked her, for example, how far she'd gone in school. Rather than say, I'm a high school graduate, she said, well, I was about to sit for the entrance exams for college when my father died. So, what does that indicate to you by stating it instead of just answering, hey, I graduated from high school? What does that mean? Again, it's a kind of grandiose manner of saying I only graduated high school. I didn't go to college. But she's talking about, she was going to college as opposed to answering the question. So she had some insecurities because she didn't go to college, but she presents it in a different light. So the majority of her employment was a receptionist type job, which she would describe as being a front desk person. And then she continued to always describe herself in almost every single position as an assistant to the office manager or an assistant to the owner of the company. So it was kind of elevating her position, although she was kind of a front desk person by her description. Okay. So these are just examples in the manner that she described kind of her relationship. When she started to describe her relationship with her ex-husband and with George, there were ways that she described herself in her role in those relationships that was kind of elevating herself. So it was just a number of ways that just descriptive ways that she used throughout the evaluation of herself that appeared to have narcissistic traits. And I heard you say about how she answered the question about her education, how she answered the question about her employment, and how she answered questions about her relationship with her ex-husband and George Torres. What other criteria would tend to indicate that she was a narcissist? I didn't say that she was. I said that she has narcissistic traits, and that was the examples I gave. All right, so do you have any other criteria that she has narcissistic type traits? No, it was how she presented herself. Okay, so that's all you saw that relates to any criticism that she may have narcissism? As I sit here today without sitting down and specifically going through my notes, yes. Okay, do you think she suffers from a personality disorder? Ding, 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 ding. Yes, we have a winner. Yes, we do. She needs a soul transplant. Can we get a soul transplant up in here? Well, we just went over one criteria for the narcissistic personality disorder. That's a personality disorder. Okay. Any other criteria you felt like she might meet some disorder? Well, I think she's very disordered, but that's just me. No. Okay, so do you feel like she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder? She didn't give me criteria with regards to that. She discussed having fear and anxiety of his family and fear that they would come into the jail or have someone else come into the jail and harm her. She talked about that. And she spoke about, having recollections, remembering, DV from George during the evaluation. But those are the things that she spoke about that would go with that. But you don't believe she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, in your opinion? No, I would have to look back through my notes to see if she fully met the criteria. Can you explain why you don't think she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder? No, and I didn't say one way or the other. I would have to look back through my notes for that. Is that something that you may in the future give an opinion about after some time reflecting and reviewing on your notes? I may. Okay, that's something that you will let the lawyers know about if that changes? Yeah, sure. You may have already answered this. You said you felt like she met some of the criteria for this anxiety disorder. No, she says, so she definitely has the attributes and discussed with me that she has anxiety and symptoms of anxiety. And we discussed that. So whether those symptoms are attributable to generalized anxiety disorder, or which is what she says she's been diagnosed with in the past, as opposed to an adjustment disorder based on what's going on right now. What would be the criteria that you would look for to determine whether someone suffered from anxiety disorder? Again, generalized anxiety, feelings of restlessness, uneasiness. So, all the general symptoms of anxiety, but is typically related to numerous with generalized anxiety disorder. The anxiety is not specific to one specific thing. It's generalized, just like it says. It can, and anything can make you anxious as opposed to an adjustment order. It's related to just what's going on right now. Was there any criteria you felt like she exhibited that would indicate she suffered from anxiety disorder? Well, again, I think I saw the symptoms that overlap for the two disorders. And between anxiety and adjustment disorder, correct. And those are restlessness and uneasiness? Yes, if she has symptoms of anxiety. So whether it's attributable to generalized anxiety disorder right now or whether it's just attributable to an adjustment disorder right now is the question. The actual diagnosis is in question. The symptoms aren't the question. Okay. And this is where he's going to completely miss the point of what she's just saying and ask the same damn question over again, like we've seen many times. Okay, but the criteria would be restlessness, and I heard you say uneasiness. Are there any other criteria for anxiety or adjustment disorder? Yeah, there's lots of criteria for anxiety. Can be, an increased heart rate. So, any feelings of that something will come along with anxiety, difficulty sleeping, decreased appetite, anything that comes along from people being anxious. Okay, now there were two videos, and you said you didn't watch any videos. There was a video of George Torres lying in the bed and Sarah wants her keys back. Did you have a chance? Were you able to hear me just now? I did. Okay, there was a video of George Torres lying in the bed and Sarah wants her keys back. Did you have a chance to review that video or speak to the attorney about it? No, sir. As she previously stated at the start of this, when you asked her what she reviewed, she saw no videos, you giant effing moron. Okay, did you heard Sarah talk about her drinking alcohol? Yes, I asked her about that, correct. Do you have any opinions about that, about alcohol as it relates to Sarah Boone? Yes, I think Sarah Boone has alcohol use disorder. And is that what we used to call being a lush or a drunk or a booze hound? A liquor soaked, deviant, whatever you want to call it. Uh, is that what we used to call alcoholism? We don't use the term alcoholism, but we use the term alcohol abuse or alcohol dependence, but we don't use those anymore. Now it's alcohol use disorder. How long has that term been used, use disorder? Well, it came into effect with the DSM-5, and so I want to say probably 5 years ago. I'd have to look. And your diagnosis says she suffers from alcohol use disorder. Yes. Is that based on the history she gave you? Yes. And and she acknowledged herself that she felt her drinking was problematic for her. Okay. And when I asked her if she felt her drinking had been problematic for her, she said yes. Okay, okay. So, do you have any opinion on the impact that Sarah's drinking had on her thinking and behavior on the night of this incident? Yeah, I think it certainly affected her thought process and behavior. I think they were both drinking. They acknowledged that, and she agreed with that. In terms of Sarah, what impact did Sarah's drinking have, in your opinion? If you have one, what impact did Sarah's drinking have on her thinking and behavior at this time, the time of this event? Well, alcohol disinhibits people, so it probably disinhibited her. I don't know what her alcohol level was. They said I think 2 bottles of wine. So you mean, what do you mean by disinhibits? It causes people to, or allows people to do things they wouldn't normally do. So the alcohol, in your opinion, may have impacted her thinking and behavior at the time of this event. It may have, but unfortunately for her, it was voluntary intoxication. No one forced her to drink. Right. It was voluntary, which isn't a defense. But the alcohol could have affected her thinking and behavior that night. Yeah. And generally, you think if it affects people in that they are disinhibited, they tend to do things they wouldn't normally do? Yes. Anything else you'd like to say about that alcohol and how it affects her thinking and behavior at the time of this event? No. Again, I don't know what her blood alcohol level was at the time of the incident, so I can't tell you whether it did or did not affect her. Okay, and then I know that Sarah, before I came on the case, maybe I was just coming on, she wrote a bunch of letters to the judge and the prosecutor and the governor and possibly Jesus and the Pope and maybe even a Unitarian priest. Do you have any clinical conclusions? I was going to say collusions. Actually, collusions as it relates to her writing all those letters. Not without having read them. Okay, on the subject of battered spouse syndrome, generally, what are the characteristics that are present in individuals suffering from battered spouse syndrome? What are their characteristics? Again, it would depend on each individual, but typically they can be, it depends on the abuse. So it depends on, if they're intimidated, if they're used to economic abuse against them and try to control them, if they isolate them. It also depends on each individual and their response to that. But typically they're quiet and meek, people describe it as walking on eggshells, trying to avoid conflict with their abuser. Sarah and walking on eggshells are two incompatible scenarios that should both of these things come together, I think it would possibly send us into a supernova type explosion. Sarah, accountability, timidity, not being rebellious or, ridiculous. Sarah has never walked on eggshells, ever. Any other generalized characteristics that you have that you haven't mentioned relating on the individual? Generally, I understand that there is specifics, but generally the characteristics that you would find from someone suffering from battered spouse syndrome. I mean, there are, statistically, they are, underemployed, undereducated, lower educated, lower, although it crosses all boundaries but it's more prevalent in the lower socioeconomic status. So, there are a lot of statistics on that. Any other characteristics other than what you've mentioned here today that we'll typically see in someone suffering from battered spouse syndrome? No, I think those are the big ones. All right. Within the psychiatric and psychological community, what are the criticisms about battered spouse syndrome? Well, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Well, it would seem in the field, you would have some detractors from this condition. I know it's tied with post-traumatic stress. You're familiar with that. So how is battered syndrome or spouse syndrome tied to post-traumatic stress? Yes, it can be. Okay, I don't think that there's an actual diagnosis in that book you mentioned, the medical book. He means the DSM-5. One would think that you would know the, psychological Bible if you're going to be in that book of learning that you have over there. Heathen, it's not even a Bible. I see you there. It's the DSM-5. I see you. But there isn't one for battered spouse syndrome, correct? That's correct. And battered spouse syndrome typically falls under the post-traumatic stress disorder. Is that correct? If they meet the criteria, they can qualify for that diagnosis. Correct. Okay, and I guess it's just a general question in the field. Have you heard criticisms about forming opinions that somebody suffers from battered spouse syndrome or anything about the condition where they think it's not legitimate that's what I'm getting at? No, I haven't. I'm sorry. No. No criticisms? No criticisms? I know it has been in the law. It has been in medicine for several years now. I think Lenore Walker was the first who ever developed the theory, correct? So, dude doesn't know the DSM-5, but knows Lenore Walker because, penny problem glasses, his expert, read all the books and took all the tea. I'm not sure, but it's been 20 odd years. What have you been doing with your life, woman? Correct. So it's established, would you agree? It's established in the psychiatric, psychological community that battered spouse syndrome is an actual syndrome. It is a pattern we recognize, yes. It's not a diagnosis. Correct. Okay. As a result of that pattern, the individuals who are suffering from it, I don't want to say they suffer from psychosis, but it's an altered mental state. Uh, they may, some of them. Okay, have you ever been or ever not been allowed to testify as an expert on battered spouse syndrome? No. Or any other field, have you ever not been allowed to testify? No. What is your clinical and treating experience of battered spouse syndrome? Again, we see them. I work on a crisis stabilization unit. So I see individuals who are involved with intimate partner violence on a regular basis. Maybe not every day, but certainly throughout the week. We'll have individuals admitted that are and have involvement with intimate partner violence. So, how many people would you say that you've treated for battered spouse syndrome that you felt qualified for battered spouse syndrome? Oh, I don't know. Have you ever found that someone qualified for battered spouse syndrome? Again, get your crayon out, Owens, your big red one. It is not a diagnosis. So it's not something I would document in my medical records. I would document that they were a victim or have been involved in intimate partner violence, which is what we call it. But have you ever formed an opinion with a patient that, yeah, this person's right there? I understand they've got instances where they're a victim of DV, and so they're either coming to be treated or they're coming in some kind of crisis situation. And you have to find out that part of the reason they're in crisis is because they're, being a victim of DV. But in terms of you actually assessing somebody and seeing somebody that you could be able to form an opinion, yes, I believe this individual suffers from battered spouse syndrome. Have you ever been able to do that and form an opinion that that's the case of any of your prior patients? No. My opinion would have been that they were suffering from acute stress disorder, which is an actual diagnosis, prior to post-traumatic stress disorder. Secondary to intimate partner violence would have been my opinion. I would not have. Have you ever testified in court that someone suffered from battered spouse syndrome? I don't know that I've said those terms. Again, intimate partner violence, and it's not a diagnosis. It's a collection of, symptoms that you identify or report. They identify or report. Have you ever testified in court before someone that someone did not meet the criteria of battered spouse syndrome? No. Again, I don't know that I would have used those words because it is not a diagnosis that I would have testified to. It is a group of symptoms. Is it your opinion that Sarah Boone does not suffer from battered spouse syndrome? No. Again, I would have to go through my notes to fully formulate an opinion on that, but I think she has certainly been involved in a violent relationship. But you haven't formed an opinion one way or the other about whether Sarah Boone suffers from battered spouse syndrome? I think I want to go through it to make sure, but I believe that there was a lot of violence in her relationship. She described being threatened. She talked about, the kind of violence cycle and the different aspects of it. So most likely she does, but I don't have an issue with that. Okay. And then, so to be fair from you, you only saw her for a couple hours, 2.5 hours, whatever the case may be. And you're trying your best, right? Right. Just being the best. Even though you're a woman, you're trying your best. I know those boobs just get you all headed up and you can't remember nothing. Uh, as we're all trying to do, our job. I know you felt like, okay, she's been diagnosed with this anxiety disorder, and you think maybe it's more of an adjustment to the jail situation. And then you felt like, you have that opinion. And then you had some opinion that she tends to meet some of the criteria for narcissism. You've said that. Correct. And then I hear you saying now that she may very well meet this criteria for battered spouse syndrome. But you may want to look at your notes and reflect on that a little bit more, correct? Correct. Are there any other diagnoses besides those I just mentioned? Alcohol abuse disorder we spoke about. Oh yeah, right. She's a booze hound. I totally forgot it. She's a total lush. I mean, but she loves Jesus and justice from her letters, so I'm gonna let her have that one. Okay, all right, I forgot about that one. That would be the fourth one. Correct. And that was based on what she told you in terms of her history with the use of alcohol? That's correct. Any other diagnoses other than those four potentially? No. Okay, and do you intend to express any other opinions other than what we've spoken about here today? No, I will answer whatever questions I'm asked. Okay, well, I'm asking you now. I mean, you're the expert. I'm not. You're the one that's evaluated her. You're the one that's given her a test. I don't know the field like you do. You know the field. I understand you've said, hey, I want to think more about this. I want to review my notes and see some more. But if in terms of right now, without any further reflection, without any further, yes, sir, reading of notes or any other opinions that you think you could express in any form or fashion with this experience. Almost 1,000 jury trials or 1,000 trials you testified as an expert. Anything else that comes to mind that you maybe an opinion that you might express in Sarah Boone's case? Anything else that I'm asked with regards to how her diagnosis come into play with regards to her case, I guess. What other opinions do you believe you're qualified to express as it relates to Sarah Boone and the facts and circumstances related to this case? Anything with regards to her diagnosis, I guess. And those 4 things that we mentioned? Correct. Okay, is there anything else you need to do on the case other than potentially go back through your notes and reflect on the interview and whatnot? I know we didn't record the interview, did we? Not that I was informed of. Okay, I should have done that, but we didn't. My bad. My assistants are out. They didn't bring the recorder. But other than that, the notes that you received, reviewed, were given to you, and then the interview and the testing that you did, correct. Is there anything else you need? Yes, I believe I am waiting for the review, to review the deposition of the defense expert. Dr. Julia Harper? I believe so, yes. And Dr. Michael Brannon? Yes, I believe I'm waiting for those deposition transcripts. Would it be important for you to review any other records, like medical records or anything of that nature? If there's anything that I've reviewed that's been disclosed that I've become aware of, I'm happy to review it. What about the jail medical records, if we were able to obtain those? Absolutely, I'd be happy to review them. Anything else you feel like you would need or that you haven't gotten to be able to express opinions in this case that you've mentioned here today? No, because I don't know what else is out there, so no. Okay, so you mentioned forensic work being 50% of your job responsibilities? Yes, sir. How much income do you make a year on forensic work? I have no idea. I believe last year, I'm guessing I might, I want to say last year it was probably 100, 150 maybe, might have been less than 100. That you make on forensic work? Correct. And that forensic work, it's separate income from the salary you're making working at the facility. Correct. Okay, how do they split that up? I mean, how much in terms of yearly salary at the facility you're working at? I'm not sure what my salary is, in all honesty. It just comes, but it all comes together. So I have my salary, my base salary. I get extra pay for working on weekends, which I do because we don't have any other physicians to do it. And then my forensic work. The bills are split 65% to me and 35% to the nonprofit. So if you do any forensic work, like on this case, then the profit or income you receive, that's split 65% to you and 35% to the facility? That's correct. And how are you being paid in this case? Chicken nuggets from McDonald's? What do you mean, how am I being paid? Like in 50 gold pieces. I'd like a solid brick of gold. Is it a court-appointed work where you got a flat fee or by the hour? No, it's not court-appointed. All right, all right. So are you being paid by the state's attorney's office? Yes, that's correct. And do you charge by the hour? Well, typically, yes. And what is the hourly rate for the state attorney type work? I want to say, I don't do the billing, but I want to say it's $350 an hour. And so how many hours have you done in this case? I do not. Okay. I have to look. Is there a cap on the number of hours that you can put on a case, or just as much as I need to be ready to testify for trial? I don't know, because in all honesty, again, I don't pay attention to that. My assistant deals with the financial and billing. I just do the work. All right. And so I know you're testifying here today, but it sounds like you might be doing additional work in terms of reviewing your notes and reflecting on the matter. Yes. How many more hours do you anticipate doing that type of work? It might take me a couple more hours to go through this. If they typically want me to type a report, that'll take much longer, but they haven't indicated that they actually want a typed report at this time. Is that normal? Is that normal? Uh, is it normal when you're testifying in something like this that you would need a report? I know insanity cases maybe, and incompetency cases that you would submit a report, something like that. But for battered spouse, is it normal to submit a report? A lot of times I do. In the majority of my cases, I submit reports. It's very rare that I don't submit a report, in all honesty, but I think this case was rushed, and that getting her seen and getting to this deposition, there wasn't a report, which actually writing the report helps me formulate my opinions and get all my ducks in a row with regards to the symptoms and pointing out how everything kind of pulls together. Even for battered spouse syndrome cases, you submit a report? I would say yes. Okay, have you been asked to submit a report in this case? In the majority of cases, I submit reports. Okay, do you know how you would have been called to handle this case? I mean, why were you selected as opposed to any other person maybe in Orlando? You know, Orlando's a big city. You think that they would have found somebody here? Was there some reason that you had some specialized expertise that you were selected over someone local? I don't know. Okay, are you? I don't know much about this area. You would have to ask them why they chose me. I can't. Okay, I'm I'm from Pensacola area, so I'm not familiar. Are you pretty well known in this geographical area of Orlando, Gainesville? Maybe that's the reason. I do. I don't do a lot of small cases in the Orlando area, but I do quite a few murder trials down there. Okay, so other than a couple hours that you intend to maybe like reflect or meditate on your notes, anything else, any other work that you intend to do on this case? No, sir, not that I'm aware. And you've expressed all of your opinions, at least generally here today. Yes, sir. And your testimony at trial, is that more expensive than the $350 an hour? I don't believe that it is. In state cases, I don't believe that it is. I think it's statutorily mandated, in all honesty, what they pay me. Just to be double dog sure, you admit that there are no other opinions other than the ones that you have expressed here today. That I've been asked about, if I'm asked about something else, that I'll offer it. And you've been provided all the resources you need to rely on and express your opinions. I have based opinion on resources I've been provided. If there's other things out there to be provided that may or may not change my opinion. And you agree that opinions are subjective and not based on authority. Checkmate, correct? It's based on my years of training and experience. But it is your subjective opinion. Again, checkmate. Correct. Ma'am, thank you for your time. It is so interesting to see a woman outside the kitchen. I don't know how this happens, and I'm real proud of you. You got yourself a real professional career. You done real well. Uh, well, yes, sir, thank you. Mr. J. Hello, doctor. If you don't mind, can you turn to the Aspire records that were sent to you and let me know when you have them? Got it. All right, at the bottom of the right corner of those records, is there page numbers? Yeah. All right. Yes. So on pages 414, 19, and 26. Mine don't have those kind of numbers. Mine has a 1 of 1 and 2 of 1. Okay. In these records, did Aspire diagnose her with adjustment disorder and alcohol intoxication? Yes. All right, and that's their diagnosis. And then we had that discussion with Miss Boone on Wednesday about some earlier visits to the hospital, where there are no records from that they diagnosed her with an anxiety disorder and prescribed her Xanax. Is that not true? I don't believe it was a hospital. I think it was her primary care physician, is what she testified to. And actually, I'll go backwards because what they diagnosed her with was an adjustment disorder and alcohol intoxication with mild use disorder. Okay. Uh, so they did use alcohol use disorder also. And her blood levels, alcohol blood levels, are what they are in the reports. We don't need to discuss that. Okay. In regards to anxiety versus adjustment disorder or both, it seems that there is a path diagnosis for each of those, correct? That's correct. And for you to make a distinction between the two of the whatever significance there may be in that distinction, you would need more time to think about that. Correct. Thank you for summarizing what I said without being stupid. Okay, all right. Now, in regards to trauma, is trauma something that's subjective to the person who is on the receiving end of it? And let me give you an example. One spouse may come home to another spouse and call her a jerk. That person that was called a jerk may think it's the end of the world and cry for a weekend and file for divorce. Whereas the other person might brush it off as nothing. Is that a fair assessment or example of how trauma works? Yes. Each individual is different with regards to how they perceive things around them. So even in a violent relationship where both people are in the relationship may be violent towards one another at different times, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're internalizing that as trauma the way someone else may or may not. Correct. Not necessarily. So, just because someone's in an abusive physical relationship with another person, does that mean that it's leaning towards the criteria of battered spouse syndrome? No, not necessarily. And I don't know that we've talked about it, but is it efforts to control another person? Is that a component of battered spouse syndrome? Uh, for the abuser, not the abusee, not for the victim. So, for example, if one partner has another partner's, let's just say, birth certificate for funsies, paper, and wouldn't turn them over to the person, is that an element of control? Showing that person is trying to exert control over the person that wants their identification papers? Yes. Let's go giving gifts to another person in a relationship. If partner A gives partner B a gift and then still, when it's convenient, considers partner that to be partner A's property, even though it was a gift to partner B, can that be an element of trying to exert control over partner B? Yes, it's coercion and it's a kind of a form of financial abuse where you're, giving things and taking them away. Good, okay. Is isolation any relevance to a battered spouse syndrome situation? I know it's not a diagnosis, but if partner A is isolating partner B from friends, family, coworker, does this have any influence on the decision by a healthcare professional as to whether this is signs of battered spouse syndrome? Yes, yeah, that's one of the symptoms that you see in intimate partner violence. One of the ways of manipulating or controlling someone is isolating them from friends, peers, and relatives. How about if partner A is threatened partner B with the legal process, such as getting arrested or following through with prosecutions? Is that an element of control that would be criteria for battered spouse syndrome? Yes. Again, it's threats and coercions. How about tearing another partner down, verbally telling partner B that he or she is worthless? I'm the best thing that's ever happened to you. You will never do better than me. Those sort of things. Sarah, the fact that you could say these things about yourself without laughing your tits off is amazing. Because not only are you not the best thing that's happened to anyone, but you are an albatross around the neck of whoever you are with. Generally, that lends itself to emotional abuse, which goes along. It's not just physical abuse; it's financial abuse. It can be, SA. It can be, as you're talking about, just different types of abuse. Okay. Can a partner in a relationship, without even being subjected to physical abuse, be made to feel worthless and out of control and dependent on the partner that says those types of things to him or her? Yes. Is there any sort of phraseology or words that describe when there's actually not physical violence necessary, but just the psychological violence? Just emotional abuse. Is that a diagnosis in the DSM, or is it a fit under PTSD and other trauma-related issues? No, no, it's not a diagnosis. Again, it's something we would recognize, and you may have an adjustment disorder due to that, an acute stress reaction due to that. So it's something that we would identify as one of the stressors that's causing the diagnosis, but not the diagnosis in and of itself. Prior to saying that a particular person has the sign or recognized criteria for battered spouse syndrome, what sort of things would you like to have as a practitioner besides just a history given by the person that's alleging they were abused? Oh, right, right. Collateral from other individuals who are familiar with the relationship, medical records that would indicate that they've been treated for different injuries, if there's been physical violence or SA. So, police reports, if there's been prior arrest or documents of the police coming out to the home. A lot of times they would go to the home in years past but not result in arrest. Sometimes they end up getting Baker acted when the violence in the home as opposed to arrested. So, any documents that may lay out the kind of pattern of abuse and turmoil in a relationship. So, anything that is not dependent on the credibility of the historian. Correct. So, for example, if there's a video that exists of partner A accusing partner B of stealing car keys, the credibility of that is dependent on the person accusing the other person of stealing the keys, even though there may be other possibilities, such as you are a drunk wine hound who couldn't find your damn keys. Correct, or even misplacing them, yes, correct. When the historian of the abuse has alcohol abuse disorder and gets acutely intoxicated, has narcissistic personality tendencies, even if they might not meet the 5 criteria or whatever it is in the DSM-5 TR, are those red flags to take what the historian is saying with grains of salt, and it may require extra corroboration? They are. Just being in the criminal arena to start with is a red flag, and that you want to take everything and kind of cross-check everything that you're being told. Now, in particular, with the history that Miss Boone gave Wednesday about the date of the offense, I know you were taking notes. Can you tell us, starting from when they woke up? I remember that being kind of the question and kind of redirecting to that. Take us through what she said was her day, and we can stop. Yes, it'll be a long narrative, so we can stop as we need. Okay, so she said that they woke up in the morning and he wanted to drink. She asked him if they would clean the house together in an effort to kind of distract him from that. She said they cleaned, they did laundry, vacuumed, went out on the back porch where they smoked, drank, and talked. Okay, let me stop you right there. Just that we're clear. I don't know if we clarified that. Wednesday, we did take that to mean smoking nicotine versus smoking cannabis or something else. I took it to mean smoking nicotine because she told me she's only smoked cannabis 3 times in her entire life. Get Sarah some flippin' gummy stat. Could you imagine Sarah Mello? I like all of you guys, and I'm kind of a piece of crap. I'm really sorry. I tend to do terrible things because I think I'm important, but I'm really not. And I know deep down that I'm not, so I'm kind of an asshole. Could you get me some Cheetos? I would pay good money to see her stoned. I'm not gonna lie. Either way, in whatever context you'd like. Allegedly in Minecraft. But she did cheat on her husband, so biblically accurate, at least Old Testament wise, not new, like kinder Jesus go and sin no more side. But, you know, the table flipping Old Testament God would have been okay with it. All, okay. All right. Go from there. Thank you. So this was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon by this point because they actually didn't. She later went backwards and said she didn't know what time they got up, so it wasn't necessarily morning. So by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they finished cleaning and they were on the back porch smoking, drinking, and talking. She couldn't recall if they ate lunch, but he got a bottle of wine and they'd had a half a bottle from the night prior. And then they got another bottle of wine. She said they went to Publix together and they were back on the back porch hanging out. They had a dartboard and 2 beach chairs out there and they were just spending time. And then she said he began thinking about life in general and got upset. She said she was afraid that he would lay his hands on her and asked if he wanted to call his daughters. She acknowledged that she knew his daughters would refuse to speak to him when drunk, and so that upset him more. Meaning you set him up to have a terrible time because you knew that they don't like to talk to him when he's drunk. So the last time that his daughters got to talk to him, he was drunk as a skunk, and it was because you wanted to make him feel bad. You absolute witch of a woman. You are just terrible. You are awful. I hope you realize that, you know, it's good Jesus loves you because everyone else thinks you're a mega cahoot, okay? So I'm glad you have one person on your side, but not many others, ma'am. She acknowledged that she knew his daughters would refuse to speak to him when he was drunk, so that upset him more. Then she thought she would show him her art, though she thought the daughter would show him her artwork. But eventually he called his brother and she said that he was sad and seemed to be a turning point for him. And then she said she pushed him and tried to get him to tell his brother that he had pulled her down the stairs the night before. So, and I questioned her about that because she said, you know, she was worried that he was getting upset and she didn't want to upset him. But yet she said she was trying to get him to tell his brother that he had done something to her the night before, which seemed like that to me, that would be more upsetting for him. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite thing that we like to do when we're trying not to get someone pissed off. And then she kind of denied that, said that they stayed outside for a while, and then they decided to go inside. She said he was upset and she introduced a puzzle. You know what? I think we may have another contest for what not to tell a woman when they're upset. So, ladies and me, I think calm down. You're acting like your mother, and do you want to do a puzzle? I think we found the 3 most terrible damn things to tell anyone when they're upset. Although acting like your mother might be different, like you're acting like your father for a guy. I'm just saying, as a woman, it wounds. It wounds me. Okay. As a woman who has a mother that maybe I don't always see eye to eye on, I caveat this because some people really love their mother, so telling them that they're acting like their mother would be great, and I really love my mother, but we just are not the same person. So that would be a no-go. That is a divorceable offense in my house. Along with telling any restaurants that it is my birthday, because if I have to sit around with the 84 unenthusiastic waiters and the one really enthusiastic waiter going, happy, 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 happy birthday. No. No, that is absolutely a divorceable offense. Okay, let's see here. So, she denied that. She said he was upset and she introduced a puzzle that they were doing and they finished it. Then they did some arts and crafts, and then she offered that she was trying to unfocus him on hurting her and being upset, although he hadn't done anything at this point. She said she was entertaining him for herself to be okay. She said it was a normal day for her. She was afraid all day. He was sad and upset. They listened to music, but she doesn't like his music. It's angry rap music about unaliving and hurting things. But he was dancing with dogs. I can just see him dancing to WAP with the dogs, the blind and the deaf dogs, as, Nicki Minaj is in the background. The dogs are twerking a little bit because aren't the dogs girls? So they're like, come, what in the hell are we talking about here? And then she said they were sitting on the couch. And then she said at some point he went to get cigarettes and came home with more wine, just like Jesus. He turned money into wine. It's a Christmas miracle. Cletus, get over here. He done made a magnum. So at some point, he left at home and came back, and she wasn't clear where this was in the lineup of what occurred. And then she said we were both laughing, having a good time, and then they were just sitting there in silence. And he said, "You're it." And she said, "Now we have to play hide and seek." And she was it. So she didn't stay there and count, you know, she went to hide because that's how you play it in Sarah Boone No Holds Bar's house rules. Hide and seek. TM for when she gets out. So keep that trademarked. Combat hide and seek coming to a, gladiatorial arena near you. So she went upstairs to take a shower while he was hiding, and she stayed up there for a while. Then she came back down and, decided it had been enough time, and she got out of the shower and was coming downstairs. She said that there was a suitcase and some clothes that they'd gotten out to donate, and they were trying to get that together. And it was on the floor in the living room, and she was just coming down the stairs. She saw him kind of slipping into the suitcase as a hiding place. And she said, I saw him in the suitcase and I zipped him up and we were laughing. She said, then he said he couldn't breathe. And I remember feeling I couldn't breathe when he was choking me or going in the back entry, though look, these are Sarah Boone's words, not mine. We have no evidence that has been, put out in public that states that he SA'd her at any point. Again, we should give this man a prize, the fact that he was able to maintain a stiffness when looking at that face. I mean, he must be a hero for testosterone at this point. And I was angry and I shook the suitcase. I've lost control of the suitcase and it flipped. She said my son's baseball bat was right there. He put 2 fingers out and I hit them with the bat. I know. And she said, then I know. Now I'm definitely going to die. This is what that was. What it sounds like. This is what it feels like. I didn't want to leave him face down, so I left him right side up. I felt that if he got out, I didn't care if I died. I was tired of it. I was tired of living in constant fear. I don't want to live like this anymore. And she said she took the movie and a photo to show him Terror, which because she intended to show him it the next day, and that's what she said about it. And did she indicate that she just felt like there was a generalized fear that she had a physical harm from him throughout the day, every day? That's what she said, yes. Now, did she describe her relationship as sort of she was the nurturer who was going to save him? Yes. Throughout her description of the relationship with him, yes, she did everything for him. He would lose his job, she'd go back, she would go, he would go to his boss, she would go to his boss and beg them to take him back and get his job back for him. So, she was, the kind of link to his family for him. She was kind of this almost like savior kind of presentation with regards to him. Did she ever describe that he tried to isolate her from her family? She didn't describe that. Did she ever describe him trying to prevent her from seeing her son or spending time with her son or having her son come over? No. She didn't say that he tried to prevent that. Did she ever describe him isolating her from her friends, preventing her from going out or seeing her friends? No, I don't recall her saying that. Did she describe that there were times, however, that he would take her debit card and or credit card and then go spend money that she didn't want to be spent? I don't recall her telling me that. And that might have been something that was outside the scope of your evaluation. Right, right. During the course of her relationship with George, did she describe that she went to her ex-husband's house as a place of solace to escape the situation with George? Yes. And the night of the incident, did she describe that anything was preventing her from going to her ex-husband's house? Or to a neighbor? Or to anyone else when George was in the suitcase? No. Do people who suffer from abuse disorder or substance abuse disorder other than alcohol, do people in that situation tend to lie about their use or minimize their use? Yeah. Can you elaborate on that? Yeah, they teach us that in medical school that you'll almost kind of double what people tell you they use. You should expect that they're actually using double the amount that they will minimize when you ask how much they use. That's pretty typical. Okay, and again, when you went through the text messages, did you see anything in the text messages attributed to the phone number that is apparently Miss Boone's? And the other recipient is either George or George's brother, Moe, or Mo, short for Moises? Moses? Wait, why do you have an I in Moses? Okay, chat. Is it pronounced Moises or is it just pronounced Moses and I ignored the I? Because I don't want to be insensitive and I don't want to butcher someone's name intentionally, but the I is throwing me off. I'll continue and I'm just going to call him Mo now. I think describing George in a poor light and saying bad things about George. Yes, there's times when she's, even texting George and cursing and, as I said, putting him down. Did George, again, we're attributing, who's using these handheld devices at any particular time. We don't know that. But in any of the text messages that appear to be attributed to being sent from George, did he ever respond and retaliate and speak in the same tone, in the same words she did? No, not that I recall. Okay, did she in the text messages ever threatened the process of arrest if he or members of his family do not do what she wished? I think. Again. Oh, well, that would explain it. I think, and again, if you don't know, that's fine. Yeah, I don't recall specifically. I think there may have been one incident where that was brought up, but I don't recall specifically who was involved in the conversation. As far as controlling identification papers, one spouse or partner doing that to the other one, destroying things of value such as identification papers, is that a component of control that you see in an abusive relationship? Oh, thank you, analytical one. So it's moises. All right. Hey, I learned something new today. Yes, absolutely. I don't think we have any other questions. Mr. Owens, do you have any follow-up? Yes. Dr. Werner, those were good questions by the prosecutor, and I've asked some questions. Well, it's good that you noticed that the prosecutor had good questions and you had, what does that mean, Owens? That means your questions were bad. Mr. Owens, the redirection. Is there anything that you can think of that we might not have touched on that stands out in your mind that maybe you need to testify to here today to let us know every potentiality? Of course, we want to know everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. Okay, you're Sarah Boone's lawyer. You know the ugly. So is there anything other than catch-all maybe that he forgot to mention, I forgot to mention, that you feel is somehow relevant, material, or important to the case? Not as I sit here today, no, sir. That is all the questions I have. Yeah, so, and then again, if you have follow-up, so this is Mr. J, thoughts based on reviewing your notes and kind of have time to settle in and doing that. Even though you work a tremendous amount of hours, please let me know so I can let Mr. Owens know. Absolutely. Also, I know that I just received Dr. Harper's deposition while we were starting this deposition, so I will get the transcript to you. And then when I get to Dr. Brannon's, I will get that to you too. And if you formulate new opinions that you have already not already told Mr. Owens about regarding what they said, then please let me know. Yeah, absolutely. We'll likely have a conversation about that so we all know these things. All right. Do you want to proofread or waive proofreading of your deposition? I'll read it. Thank you. All right, Madam Court Reporter, email address. Yes, please. And then the witness gives the email address, and then they all go home. And then Mr. Owens says, thank you. All right. Bye-bye. So, for the love of all that is holy, Owens, it's like when we saw the lawyer trying to talk to the expert about the allele program in the Jose Ibarra case. He's asking her a question. He's just not listening to the answer because him as a lawyer, now you saw a pretty good lawyer get stuck in this trap, but he already has the next question because he thinks he's found a loophole or, a gotcha moment. So instead of listening to the expert say, well, yes, he might have been a contributor, but he was under 4%, so he's technically not counted. And he was like, but what about quadrillion and sextillion and octogenarian? And she's like, yes, but it was under 4%, so we already take out, that. So we don't look at him. I don't have any opinion on his, practicality being a suspect because it's under 4%. Here, the doctors basically answered Owen's questions 3 times over, and he's like, how many cases have you done? And she's like, I don't know. I don't pay attention. I do what I'm asked, but I've also got a busy, full-time career helping people in a state of acute crisis. And he's like, okay, so like 10, 11 to 12. And she's like, I don't know. As I just stated, I do not follow this. So interesting. I don't see anything here because the only thing that she was looking to change her opinion on, and what Owen fails to understand, is the only thing that she was trying to lock down her opinion on, for the most part, from what she expressed here, is whether Sarah Boone had generalized anxiety disorder or more of an adjustment disorder based on being in prison. So Owens is masterful at failing to understand what the witness is actually saying. If I can get a hold of Dr. Harper's deposition, we will do that one just to see how Owens acted when it was one of his experts, because I think we'll find that he is able to listen and understand and use his cognitive abilities a bunch better. But I think I am going to get off of here and let my voice rest so that I have enough voice left to yell at youngest most feral again for using my toothbrush to, regress the cats to their kitten days. It never fails, y'all. It's never a dull moment if you have, 5 cats, 6 kids, and 1 husband. It is amazing that anything ever gets done. But I hope you guys have a lovely day. I am going to go out and buy myself a new daggone toothbrush and get stuff ready to go for Thanksgiving. This is the first year I've been so late and behind on getting stuff for Thanksgiving. I'm all I'm all Twitter-pated, just like Owens. I'm gonna have to go, get my sweet potatoes and all that other stuff. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you tomorrow on Stabby Day with Baker, and then we have Legal Shenanigans Theater, where we look, if you like Mystery Science Theater, if you like interrogations, we marry them together with, valiant attempts to stay on topic. Uh, But we are doing the Tony Todd interrogation. Tony Todd, not the Candyman, but he was a father who split his time between Connecticut and Florida, but his family all lived in Celebration, Florida, and he happened to unalive all of them, including the dog. He is a jerk face of a human. He has been adjudicated guilty, so I take out all of my snark and petty on this man. In fact, if you would like to listen to an expletive-filled rant, listen to the last one, because this butterball of a human being had the nerve to say that his wife had lost her beauty because she had lost weight due to a chronic illness and lost all of her womanly curves while he is over there looking like Grimace. Oh, heck no. No, no. Salty Mo does not deal with that. So I will leave that there. Thank you guys so much for joining and listening and following along as I did this deposition. It actually went a lot quicker than I thought, because I thought 87 pages, we're going to be here forever. But there you go. Let me see if there is anyone that I can redirect you to. I can switch you over to Recovery Addict, Legal Vices, or Broken Baker. So if anyone has a distinct, desire to do any of those, it looks like Baker is doing the world's weirdest witness, so that's probably fun. Looks like Vices is on the Leilani Simon trial. To be fair with you guys, it was probably between Recovery Addict and Broken Baker. I know the Leilani Simon case is important, but I don't like kid cases. So I am going to send you guys over just to Broken Baker. And actually, yeah. And you guys can go wherever you want on the interwebs, after that. But I just figure, not a kid case Friday. It's too close to the Lake and Riley thing. And that's just been a long week. So I'm glad I got to do something fun with you guys. I'm going out to buy a toothbrush now. Godspeed, because everyone is buying turkeys now. So I will see you guys later. Bye, guys.